What is up, everybody? Jester here, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different, and that's going to be talking about fantasy football. Now, kind of on a flyer at the beginning of the season this year, I decided to go into an ESPN random league and just kind of join and do a draft, and I did a stream on it. It was kind of fun, and we've been maintaining the team for weeks and weeks, but we've run into some problems. And to kind of illustrate this, let me show you our full schedule and our result. We are currently 2-6 right now. We'd probably be 3-5 because we did tank this week. We literally just started a defense and scored 2 points because we dumped everybody. But let me show you why we dumped everybody. Because every week that we would lose, it seems that we were losing to the top scorer in the league. And our team has just never gelled. We never got, we got good weeks out of individual players, but we never had a really good week, with the exception of week 5 where we scored 146 points, that the team actually kind of did something together. But as you can see, 148 points was the top score in the league that week. 159 was the top score in the league that week. 146 was the top score in the league that week. 149 was the top score in the league that week. So was 162. So every time we're losing, it's just some random guy that gets us, and it's kind of bothersome. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go and see what's left over in the free agents, and we're going to see if we can put together a team that nobody else wants. And we're going to monitor this as the season goes on and see if we can get ourselves back into playoff contention when it comes to this fantasy football league. I think it's kind of a fun exercise to see at the halfway point of the football season who's been good, who's not, and who people haven't actually rostered. So we got a lot to go on. Let's get into a quarterback. Now, obviously, when it comes to quarterbacks, there's not going to be a lot of, frontline starters that are left over at this point that people really, really want. So we're not going to be able to get the Patrick Mahomes of the world, that type of thing, even though he's not having a great year. But I'm automatically kind of keying on a couple of guys here. I think I want to add Jared Goff, and I think we want to drop our non-playing guy. And we're going to confirm that. And then I want to go into add player, and I want to look at this again, because I saw one that I'm really interested in, and that's going to be Jameis Winston, who just took over this week for Deshaun Watson, who is now out with, I believe it's an Achilles tear. So he's going to be the starting quarterback in Cleveland. He had a really decent game on Sunday, and I think this is going to actually be our backup guy. So I think with Jared Goff and then having Jameis Winston, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape, actually. When it comes to running backs, this is pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel. Most teams they're going to roster at least 3 of these guys, if not 4, depending on the layout of their team, which means at 10 teams, you're not really going to run into too many starting running backs when it comes down to it. So we're going to be doing kind of a running back by committee, I would say. And I think the first pickup we're going to make is Bucky Irvin. Even though we're not going we're not going to play him this week because he is playing my Kansas City Chiefs, and their run defense has been excellent thus far throughout the season. I do think that's a good pickup for weeks going forward. But that leaves us with at least a couple of spots here that we want to check out. And I think we found a pretty good one here, because what we're looking for is guys that have scored pretty high in the fantasy points, which means they're getting playing time. A good example, Bucky Irving here had 15 points last week, which is above the 10 or 12 that I figure we're going to be getting on a pretty regular basis. But the one that I've kind of got my eye on as well is Alexander Madison. He's definitely a player in the Las Vegas deal. They're going to be playing Cincinnati this week. And if the screen ever wants to come up here, maybe we'll have to reset that. Let's try this one. And once again, let's try to... slight pause there, guys. Sorry. For whatever reason, it just signed me out randomly. I guess my session token expired or something. But let's get back to the running backs, because I do want to talk about Alexander Madison. Now, they're going to be playing Cincinnati, whose run defense is really not that good this year. And he's also scored 94 total fantasy points through 8 weeks. And, I mean, that's not going to be bad. That's about an 11-point average, a little over that. So I think he's going to be our number 2 guy. And again, we're just going to be dropping these people that we don't actually have. They're not playing currently in the NFL. We did it. It's kind of a meme. But that's definitely going to be our next guy. And there is no guarantee, by the way, we're going to get these players. So somebody could be wanting to pick them up, and it just kind of goes from there. From there, again, we're going to be looking at this fantasy point number and just see who's got quite a few fantasy points. And as you get further down the list, it's just not very good at all. So I think we've got a couple of choices here. We could pick up Zach Charbonnet, or we could pick up Raheem Mostert. Even though he doesn't have a ton of points this season, he did come off of a good game here. But I think just to kind of diversify and get us somebody that's in the other league, I think we're going to end up going with Charbonnet. And this way, Patea Blues will be happy that we have a really nice running back from Seattle. So let's get him picked up and let's just see how it goes. Looking into the wide receivers, again, what we're going to focus on is how many total points do they have and how many do they average. Because, again, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel because we've done this way. I think it's kind of an interesting experiment to see if we can get ourselves back in contention using nothing but players that are on this free agent list. But it's definitely going to be pretty interesting. The one that jumps off the page at me right away is Khalil Shakir. We're going to be definitely picking him up in lieu of any of our non-playing wide receivers. And again, I do want to reiterate here, there's no guarantee that we're going to get these guys. Somebody could want that player and they get waiver priority over us, and that's fine. We're also going to run into a couple of situations here where, let's say, like Xavier Worthy, a good example. This guy was actually on our team, very hit and miss. He is a rookie. He did get a touchdown this last week, but his point totals, not all that great when you really stop and look at it. The next one I'm going to pick up, though, is probably Alan Lazard, because he does have a pretty good spread here, but he is questionable. But we will try to see if we can't pick this guy up, and hopefully that will help us out in the long term. And then for a third wide receiver option, I don't know, we're going to kind of do this live, I suppose. And let's do the wide receiver. And there's lots of good options here. But again, this column is what we're looking at, is the fantasy points. And we're kind of looking for consistency purposes. I think just because of DeAndre Hopkins coming in, I think that's going to open up Xavier Worthy and Kelsey quite a bit. Xavier Worthy does have a bit of a drop cease problem. But look, I think we're going to go ahead and take him for the time being. And we'll just drop one of these other random wide receivers that we have down here. And that'll get us our starting three, at least for this week. And we'll kind of work on it as we go forward based on who's available when the time comes. The tight end position is kind of an odd spot because we've actually got two guys that are inside the top 10, actually three right there that are available straight away inside of the top 10 at their position. Cole Kmet is a guy that we went ahead and tried to pick up, as well as Cade Otton. Now, we wouldn't want to start him this week because, again, he's playing the Kansas City Chiefs defense, which is a top 5 defense. So I don't necessarily want to start him. It would kind of be counterproductive for me as a fan. But then again, Kansas City does have some trouble over the middle with the tight ends sometimes. So, but if we can get Kmet, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. He is position rank 8, and then Cade Otton going forward after this week would be a good option at position rank 6. Look, they're averaging over 10 points apiece, so that's pretty good when it comes down to tight ends. The flex position on a fantasy football team is a little bit confusing for some folks, especially people that don't play fantasy or don't understand kind of what we're getting at here. But the flex position can be a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end. And in this particular league, it is a point per reception league. So what we're looking for, if we went with a running back, we want a guy that catches a lot of passes out of the backfield. And we would want a possession tight end if we were going to run a tight end as our flex. But I think more importantly, what we probably want to do is pick up a wide receiver. That'll give us a little bit of depth at that position. And that's why I've decided on Calvin Ridley. I think he's a wonderful player, and he's going to really start to bump up now that DeAndre Hopkins is gone. He did score 22 points last week. I think you're going to start to see enhanced production out of this guy because he's now their new number 1. So we're going to go with him for our flex spot. For our starting defense, and look, we did have the Chiefs defense, which is a top 5 defense. But again, we went ahead and released everybody kind of for the fun of this particular experiment, and somebody has scooped them up. I was actually hoping to get them back, but it's really no surprise that somebody scooped them up. And the other thing I want to point out here is the Vikings defense is ranked number 2 in the league right now, but they got their butt kicked last week. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go with the Lions defense, who I think has been pretty sneaky good, and they're in the top 10, and they average 8.3 points. I think it's a pretty good option to go with this. They do get some picks, and their special teams can score. So I think let's go ahead and try to pick up that particular defense, and we'll just call it from there. As far as a kicker goes, there's a couple of things you want to look at with a kicker. Their position rank does kind of mean something, but what you're looking for is a team that puts them in a position to either kick a lot of extra points or a team that tends to not be the greatest on offense and stalls out once they get towards the red zone and they kick a lot of field goals. Because field goals are actually weighted in this league. Like a 50-yard field goal is worth 5 points. Don't ask me. It's the same for everybody, so at least it's fair. But I think what we're going to be doing is we're going to be picking up Austin Siebert from Washington, because Washington has had a pretty good season thus far, and he is ranked number 2 right now at his position. Chris Boswell is the number 1 kicker currently, but they're on a bye week. So let's just go ahead and take Washington's kicker Siebert here. If it comes down to it and we need to pick up Boswell in the next week because Washington's going on a bye, we can do that, and then we can go roll with him going forward. But none of these things are going to actually take effect until much later. Like tomorrow, we will see if we actually get all of these guys, because what happens is these moves are now pending, okay? So if anybody comes in and wants one of these players and they have a higher waiver priority than me, so like we're almost guaranteed to get Jared Goff. That's guaranteed for our quarterback. And then we're almost guaranteed to get Jameis Winston, although somebody might come in and try to pick him up. We'll see what we end up with tomorrow. And then next week, I'll show you what the team looked like and how we ended up doing. Because if I'm looking at this correctly, it doesn't really seem like we're that bad off. They're projected to get 117 points. They've got a guy that's out. They got a guy that's on a bye. So maybe they haven't looked at their team just yet. But we'll see what we can get done with actual players and see if we can climb our way back into this. And if you guys are interested in this experiment, I know American football is not for everybody, but I think it's going to be fun, and we're just going to see if the leftovers can come and beat some of these teams that are doing really well in the fantasy league with the really big name players. So again, if you like that kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be doing short weekly updates every week after these games have taken place. And we'll see how we do, man. Let's see if we can get back to 8th place and climb our way back into a playoff spot. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.